Hello, and welcome to our webinar today, BTP in 30 days. Start your successful cloud journey now. The webinar will be recorded. You will get a recording and the slide decks in the next couple of days. And whenever you have a question, just put it into the chat, and the last 5 to 10 minutes we'll use it for answering them. And yeah, with this being said, I switch to Nick and Eric, who's our presenters today.
Everybody, hope you can hear me. If you can't, please say something in the chat. So, I'm Nick Franklin. I'm joined today by Erick Nunez. I'm our head of solutions. Erick's our lead client partner from Sovanta USA. And today we're going to take you through a structured approach to the SAP BTP, specifically how to adopt it. And our point is that it's one you can do in literally 30 days. And so whether you're new to the SAP BTP or you're looking to accelerate your digital transformation, we're hoping that at the end of this session, you'll learn something. You'll have a sense of who Savanta is, and we'll have equipped you with a game plan. Erick, you want to say anything before we get started?
No, just thank you everyone for joining and hope you learned something today.
So here's our agenda, pretty straightforward. We're going to go over who we are, why the BTP, kind of what the BTP is. Looking at the audience list, I think pretty much everybody should be familiar with it, but maybe there'll be something that you want to point out. Best practices, we see them, some use cases, and then kind of how we think you ought to get started. So for those of you who aren't familiar yet with Savanta, we're an SAP partner and we specialize in BTP-driven transformation. Our focus is on simplifying processes, making user experiences easier to work, accelerating innovation, and really trying to drive real-world impact for our clients. We're international. We're based out of Germany. And as of last year, we're also based out of Newtown Square, Pennsylvania. We're a small company with around 250 employees. We like to say that we're not the sort of company that we'd have as a customer. We're lucky enough to work at some really visible brands. And one of the opportunities that comes with that is that we've really been able to build some deep proficiency on the BTP. So this speaks a little bit, I think, to our credibility and also the size of project that we're comfortable working with. Here's where we fit in. So we fit into the ecosystem in a way that complements the large SIs. Uh, the SAP ecosystem as a whole is large and it's growing, but without clear governance and strategy, many organizations find that they struggle with fragmented solutions. So that's where we come in. Uh, in this case, to help companies navigate the complexity and maximize BTP's value. And overall, we really like to see ourselves as your BTP specialists. We're part of your BTP team. If you see us out in the wild, at ASOG or DSAG or any of the SAP events, we're the guys with the BTP Squad t-shirts. So the first question on the slide and the agenda was why BTP, but it's really not why BTP so much as where do we want the BTP to take us. Uh, I think it's not contentious at this point that digital transformation isn't optional. Businesses that don't adapt are going to fail behind. Uh, the questions on this slide are from a really good SAP white paper on the BTP that came out at the end of last year. And I would offer that they're not canned or they're not academic. This is exactly what we hear from companies today. They tell us that they want to move to the cloud, but they don't know where to start. They tell them that their systems don't talk to each other and it's killing efficiency. They tell us that they've got tons of data, but there's no way to turn it into insights. And so we really do feel that SAP BTP is the answer. The BTP is designed to solve all of this. BTP's vision from that same white paper is that it's the foundational tool set to build, run, and extend digital products and give access to solutions and accelerators built by the ecosystem. It comes with a bunch of benefits. You can innovate more quickly to go from ideas to production very quickly. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. Uh, what they call seamless integration, and I do believe that. Integration Suite really helps a lot in terms of integrating SAP and non-SAP solutions with an end state of your data is not disconnected anymore. There's a bunch of low code and no code options. I think we're going to see some focus from SAP over this year on the build suite. Uh, the idea is to empower business users And then lastly, data-driven decision making, using AI and analytics on real-time business data. I think everybody's probably familiar with this, but just to overview it, in case you're in sort of one corner of the BTP and you're not used to the rest of it. Uh, the BTP does a lot, broken down into these five pillars. And if you end up working with Sovanta, these are the five pillars, the five dimensions to which we address the BTP as well. Uh, as a whole, the BTP is open and it's flexible. And because it's open, I mean, one of the things it lets you do is lets you choose how to build, how to extend. You've got your choice of SAP data centers with the transition to multi-cloud. We've done some work with that recently. You get onto hyperscaler cloud infrastructure. There are still on-premise solutions. It's a very broad ecosystem. Uh, it's enterprise grade, of course. It's scalable, it's secure, it's compliant. And then the part that we're most interested in is that it's business centric. And if anybody remembers that the BTP used to have kind of a different name, this is, I think, why SAP did the rebrand. It's designed for business transformation, not just technology transformation or optimization. It's focused on improving business outcomes, and that's where a lot of the tooling comes from. So let's talk a little bit about what Savanta brings to it and what we see, right? Generally speaking, we would say that companies who struggle with the BTP fall into the same patterns. The root issue is just that the BTP isn't strategically implemented. They don't really know where they want to fit it in, or they don't have the skills that they need, or governance isn't set. And so as a result, uh, its potential isn't really understood, or it's something they plan on doing in a couple quarters or a couple years. The skill set often lags. They don't have the right people. Uh, and then lastly, it's not really sure who should be doing what. Uh, two slides back or so, I showed you all those different components. Our internal model, there's over 45 different sets of toolings or platforms and services you could work with, and that's a subset of SAP's larger model. The point that we talk about a lot is that you really need some kind of BTP governance. And before that, we say you need a strategy. So this is the start of our best practices, and we would say best practice number one is have a plan, have a strategy, which at Savanta means your overarching approach for leveraging the platform to achieve business goals. Why have a strategy? Without a strategy, you're going to be uncoordinated. Your initiatives and your stakeholders won't be aligned. You're going to end up doing ad hoc approaches, which are bad because they cost time and money. You'll see teams working in silos. You'll see over customization as opposed to using standard capabilities. And you'll see a lack of alignment with the business. And we really do feel very strongly that the BTP should tie directly to business goals. We would say that a next step after developing an initial strategy is developing some kind of a roadmap. This is a screenshot, kind of an excerpt out of something larger we're working on. It's a people, processes, tools framework for BTP adoption. If you want to put a note on your calendar, we're going to do a webcast on that with Jason Bell from SAP on March 4th. It's an ASOG webcast. And we can follow up with how to log into that if you want to. But the basic idea is that you'll have a plan to work through the FRE BTP maturity levels. Not a canned plan, but one that you fit to your organization's needs. Regardless of whether or not you use our framework, your roadmap really needs to be linked to time, probably at the monthly or the quarterly level. And it really needs to accommodate key internal and external milestones. The goal of the strategy is ultimately to tie your BTP usage to business requirements. That approach ideally cascades down into supporting measures of success and objectives. So in this example, we're starting with a top level goal to increase supply chain efficiency, right? And we decide to provide an app at the very bottom of it to help with warehouse and delivery operations. It seems straightforward, but the point is that when you do something on the platform, right, it should be supporting something which makes sense at the top level, reinforces business goals, and something you can track all the way through. So that brings me to kind of our last top level recommendation. So we talked about strategy, we talked about roadmap, we talked about linking the business goals, and it's to start with a lighthouse project. You want to start with something small. You don't want to do it all at once. You want something small, high impact, and visible. And if you're familiar with change management literature, that should sound pretty familiar to you. The point is to deliver a quick win with very little risk. The idea is to learn technology and build acceptance to make the case for broader adoption. So can you really do that in 30 days? I would say yes. And here's how we do it. And as a big caveat, uh, I'm the product manager. I am positive there are people in this audience that are going to know more about this technically than I do. What I'm proposing is the approach. I absolutely welcome your questions. But so let's say we wanted to get on the BTP in 30 days, right? Week one, we would say, is largely outside of the platform. It's about setting a solid foundation. We're looking to identify stakeholders, who's going to use the solution, who's going to manage it. We're looking at defining the specific business problem we're trying to solve to include what pain points we're solving. We're looking at gathering technical and functional requirements. What data do we need? What workflows do we need? How do we want to structure an integrations? In this example, we're going to keep the integration till the very end. And then maybe as the one major platform task, we'll be setting up the SAP BTP in the build apps environment. Uh, so development will start smoothly in the second week. The deliverables out of this week would be a finalized concept and scope, would be initial wireframes to get an idea what the app's going to look like. The setup is ready for work on the BTP, so we don't have any blockers in terms of infrastructure. And we're ending this week ready to start the next week with clarity and with alignment. In our second week, we moved to development. Key activities, we built the scanning module for barcode scanning. As a reminder, this is the example where we're looking to automate some warehouse kind of stuff. We create core workflows. They might be things like updating shipment status or proof of delivery. And we developed a dashboard so logistics teams can track what's going on. Deliverables out of this week would be a working prototype with core app logic, workflows in place, a UI walkthrough to gather early feedback. That's something that we push on pretty hard here. And if you guys want to talk about the logic about that, we can in questions and answers. But the goal is that by the end of the second week, we've got a functional prototype ready for refinement. In the third week, we'd focus on validating usability and refining functionality. Key activities would look like getting users to interact with the app so we can get some feedback, getting feedback specifically on the UX. That might be your warehouse teams, that might be your drivers. Implementing improvements. So not big stuff yet, like integration, things like that, but just improving the navigation or performance optimizations if we can see them. Deliverables are an app that's good enough to take to production. And maybe enhancements in kind of like that middle range I'm talking about. So maybe we do something like add some kind of image compression or something so things are faster, not redesigning the whole app, just tweaking a little bit. So in the fourth week, just as we're coming up on that last 20, 23 to 30 days, we're moving to production. Rolling out the app to a single pilot group, we'd suggest you could do, for example, if we're talking about warehouse operations, maybe you pick one warehouse. Training users is part of the rollout to ensure adoption, make sure they're using the app right, get some initial feedback. Monitoring usage and adoption rates to measure effectiveness. That's huge in terms of KPIs. Collecting feedback, and this is where we think you'd start planning for scalability once you see how people are using it. So maybe it looks like a potential integration with HANA down the road. Maybe it looks like integration with external logistics APIs. But the deliverables are now we have a live app in production. So you're immediately getting value out of it, even if the data is just living on the devices. You've got usage data to figure out what the impact is, what the adoption is. It'll give you a good sense how to keep developing it. And like I said, you're ready to take it to the next step if the pilot's successful. If it's not, you're not wasting the effort. But if the pilot is successful, that's when you look at plugging into FedEx, things like that. Kind of one last thing I'd like to highlight why I'm comfortable that you could do this in 30 days. It's because Sovanta actually helps people do it in 21 days. So I'm kind of showing you two things at once here. This is a brief plug for our Build Apps Bootcamp, which is a 3-week program we run, but I'm showing it to you in the Innovation Factory, which is our in-house knowledge hub, and it's our best practice repository. There's a lot of things we can do to support a customer with it. Think of this as kind of our complement to the BTP Discovery Center. Within the Innovation Factory, we break down each service offering into phases. So you'll see design at the start of it, all the way through shipment. We could take a whole other webcast to walk you through the Innovation Factory. I'm happy to take some questions about it right now. Uh, but really, all I'm trying to do right now is show you our standard phase-based approach. So let's call it the last best practice to highlight today. No matter what tool you use, it's really got to be rooted in user experience and with the intent of contributing to a larger strategic goal. So let's switch gears to use cases. Erick, you on?
Yeah. Cool. So one of the use cases that we've got is a supplier self-service portal. So this was made for a customer in the retail space. And basically, they were having a lot of issues on the procurement side, managing hundreds of vendors. It can be extremely difficult, extremely cumbersome. So the goal was really to empower their suppliers and give them access to a lot of information that they didn't have previously. And so they needed to stay up to date with everything that was changing, whether that was, information about materials, different materials coming in, becoming available, pricing as well, request changes, et cetera. A lot of different information that needed to be changed and updated in real time. And all of these suppliers needed to be updated as well, right? They needed to know what's going on. And so the customer's internal team can now collaborate on that supplier data. So this is a solution that both internally and externally can be used, and it updates, like I said, in real time. The UI is much improved as well. They can now see notifications, any requests that come in, and any open tasks that are created. The internal team can now see. So basically, the suppliers now have a lot more information that they didn't have before. So this is a very useful tool for them. And this is, again, something we got set up within those 30 days. And next one here. Okay, so the Purchasing Hub solution is a solution that we built for one of the largest food retailers in the world. You definitely heard of them, but for NDA reasons, we cannot mention them. And so the Purchasing Hub is basically a way of for this customer to buy a lot of services and address a lot of current challenges that they're facing in the market. It's got one of the best user experiences that they could have wished for as well. It's basically a central cockpit and dashboard for all of their buying specialists to plan and manage pretty much any item that they'd be looking into. So this is a really good solution that also plugs in straight into their ERP. So it's a solution that makes everything easier and gives them one central source of truth, if that makes sense too. Next one, Nick. Okay, so this is a product configuration application that we built for Anderson Hauser. This is actually a really good example of both BTP and AI. So this customer of ours offers thousands of product variations. They've got a B2B online shop. And so in the B2B online shop, customers can go in and pretty much customize any sort of product, tons of different product variations, which is great for a customer because you can get really nitty gritty into what you'd like to obtain from this retailer. But it's also very cumbersome, as you can imagine, right? So what we did is we analyzed the purchase data and built a machine learning model on BTP that's integrated into that B2B shop. And so now, after say the first like 3 or 4 product selections, then the solution will just go ahead and recommend products or recommend variations based on your historical data. And so this has actually gotten some significant improvement for this customer. It's made everything a lot more efficient for for customers coming into the BTP online shop. And on average, I believe customers are experiencing 60% fewer clicks from the minute they go on to the minute they check out. So this is actually something that's been really useful, made everything a lot more efficient and less headache for customers, right? And especially in the e-commerce world, the least amount of clicks is more favorable for getting customers checked out and actually making purchases. So it's a really good one. And this is a sales order automation tool that we created for the basically to facilitate the sales process for one of our pharmaceutical customers. This solution was built on BTP, and it was basically for this organization to get rid of a lot of inaccuracies. I'm sure a lot of you in the webinar here can relate to manual processes just taking a lot of time, number one, and also them being very error prone, right? So this customer had roughly 50,000 sales orders that they were completing on an annual basis. And so as you can imagine, that takes up a lot of time and obviously a lot of errors that are possibly happening within those sales orders. So this solution takes the sales orders, it automatically reads everything using the machine learning model and AI. And from there, it integrates all of the sales order data into the ERP and in real time. So it makes everything a whole lot easier, a whole lot smoother, and it gives them one single source of truth as well, because no longer is someone having to enter data into several different places. The AI handles all of it, and it streamlines the entire process. So this increased their efficiency and reduced their process costs as well. And it's made them a lot more scalable as well. So, we've got use cases for AI contract management as well, and a whole lot more. So if you're interested in learning about those, feel free to reach out to us. We can go over those on a private one-on-one session, and we'll be sending out all of these slides to the attendees as well. So basically from here, if you'd be interested in learning a little bit more about us or how we've created other use cases, then feel free to reach out to us. Anything you'd like to add right now, Nick?
No, let's thank you very much for talking the use cases, Eric. Let's open it up for questions and answer. We have a little bit of time.